Hello everyone. In this lesson we are going to discuss the natural minor, also known as the Aeolian mode. Before we get into that though, what I want to discuss in this video is chord-based music theory, or what you might have seen on the internet expressed in Roman numerals. Let's decipher them a little bit, make them make more sense, and hopefully help you better systematize your own music. So, if we are thinking about a major scale, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, every one of those notes can be harmonized. And if we use every other interval twice, so I go do to mi, and then I go mi to so. So I'm skipping re and I'm skipping fa. Well, I get chords off of that. Those triads, they are what we know as chords. This is the basic Western music theory formula for building chords. And so we can get an omnibus universal formula for what a major scale looks like. Now, to help you guys out a little bit here, I want to discuss doing this with bar chords to maybe make you a little bit more comfortable doing bar chords. Now, one thing that definitely helps me is I've got a 0 fret. Not going to lie, that makes me a little more comfortable doing bar chords for sure versus on a standard steel string acoustic. But the big tip I want to get into today is how to do these in a way that's more ergonomic for your hand here. So if we look at the hand, we've got this muscle here known as the pollice. We've got our index finger, and then we're going to have this little cluster of fingers here. That's going to make the chords in any of our bar chord shapes. This is going to end up being like our E shape, our A shape, or our D shape. So I want to think about making a bar chord kind of like the way you would ideally like to build a bridge, right? Now, in some cases, if I had to build a bridge, I don't have the ability to get to the other side of the river, because if I could get to the other side of the river, then I wouldn't need to build a bridge, right? But let's pretend we're in a blue sky scenario. You're on one side of the river, I'm on the other side of the river. What's the most effective way for us to build the bridge? You start on one side, I start on the other, and we meet in the middle versus trying to go from one side and just hope plank by plank everything holds as we keep adding in a new plank. And I want to maybe reconceptualize your vision of bar chords in this manner. So, what is the error I usually see in the demonstration of bar chords? It's let's go for the bar, and then we're immediately talking about the ideal way of doing that. Put your thumb on the back of the neck, make sure it's pointing up towards the headstock, transfer the force into the bar, and then add the cluster on. The reality is that's kind of inefficient. It just doesn't make for an easy way to best distribute the force of the hand. I want you to think about getting the bar in last. And so the best way to practice this is going to be to come down here, make your shapes, your E shape, your A shape, and your D shape if you want to get some additional practice here. You're going to make all three of those shapes using these three fingers to get more comfortable with transferring on the index finger. I'm going to go from an E shape here, slide that up, and then add in the bar, transferring kind of in the midpoint here. See, everything's already in place. The bar can come in the middle and kind of complete the bridge, like the keystone. Because really, these notes that we're fretting are the operant notes, right? We want to make sure those are crystal clean. We need the additional harmony notes that the bar provides us. But if you actually just had these, you have a full chord here. So the rest of the bar is just coloration. So the easiest way to practice this, go from open to third position. E, G. If you want to, punch it up a little bit, bring it up to A. You can bring it up to B. Just work the dot. Same thing here with A. And you can do the same thing with D if you want. People sleep on those D-type bar chords, but those can be quite lovely, especially if you just bridge it all the way across all 5 strings here. You end up with a second inversion of that chord. Nice and easy. So keep that in mind as you're practicing this. Now, if we're thinking about a chord scale, easiest way to do this, I'm just going to come down to first position. We're going to do F, which is normally everybody's bugaboo, so why not tackle it here today? So I'll start off with my E, transition into my F, and now it's just going to be a red pattern across these 2 strings. And so what I mean is we're going to go 1 in a major, take off your middle finger, so we go minor, and then minor again. So that's major, minor, minor. Do, re, mi. Now we're going to make our A-type bar chord. There's our B flat, C, and D minor. So major, major, minor. Major, minor, minor. Major, major, minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is a really elegant way of mapping out your chord progression if you need to modulate it. So let's say you're playing a country song and it does one of those things where we move up a half step each verse because the song's not all that interesting. Well, going from F to F sharp could be very confusing if you were thinking about this all with open chord shapes, especially F to F sharp of all keys, right? But if I'm just doing a... I can move that up a key. And do it all day. Now, if we look at what that formula looks like, here, I'm always going to try to just keep these in C major or A minor. What we end up with is a major 1, C major, a minor 2, D minor, a minor 3, E minor, a major 4, in this case F major, a major 5, in this case G major, a minor 6, in this case A minor, and then a diminished 7th chord. I actually have an online textbook called Playing the Changes. If you are so moved, you can message me. That's free. I'm happy to provide anyone with the link. It's a Google Drive. I've got a lot of visualizations of diminished chords in that. So if you're looking for more material on that, please contact me. I'm happy to just provide that to you. Not a problem. But for the purpose of this, just know that the 7th degree is our diminished scale. It's the leading tone, so it's usually just a fret behind wherever you're at. So if I'm at G, 1 fret behind here, that's the 3rd fret. 2nd fret, that would be our diminished back. That's all we're going into. But really, most songs just operate between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the exercise we just did here of thinking about this in terms of 2 reds works excellently. Now, most of the time, you are going to express your songs using a major scale formulation of the Roman numerals. Why? Because we want to think about whatever piece of music we are working on with this conception of 2 polar points, our tonic polar point and our dominant chord polar point. And that should be how we build the map. So what I mean is, in C major, that is going between C to G. This is the standard harmonic move. D to A, back to D. Or A to E to A, E to B7 to E or B. This is our harmonic move. And we might think of this in minor, too. If we have our primary polar points being something like we talked about for release in the last lesson, where we're going A minor to even E dominant in this case, that's our dominant chord. So we would express that kind of progression in the context of a minor. However, A minor, both the key and also the lowercase casual version of A minor key, and the key of A minor. I'm not going to dwell on this too much before I start busting out some rap verses on all y'all talking about Drake. But let's take a look at what the formulation would be on this before I start turning into dad jokes Novembrino over here. So in this case, we would have A minor. I'm going to update this so that there's only one I. That would be our minor 1. Our second chord would be B diminished. You'll notice that this is just the C major scale reoriented to express A minor and E minor in the 1st and 5th positions. And that's really the only reason to ever reformulate away from our default major scale formulation. That's the TLDR on this. Unless you have something where this chord's clearly the dominant chord, the departure chord, and this chord's clearly the tonic chord, and we're looking at, I don't know, like a Dorian style scale or something like that. So in this case, I don't know, G minor to D minor, but we are expressing that progression inside of the key of F major. Okay, sure, I'm with you. You might Dorian music theory that. Maybe. I don't know that I would even, though. I think the whole point of music theory is communication. It's not to dazzle people with the most sophisticated formulation of ideas, but rather to create a system of music where on the bandstand I can call things out. And this I think is the real heat check of what's the best way of doing this. Well, if you are on the stage and the keyboardist that has joined your group for the evening does not know where you guys are at in the song, and you're the person assigned to keep everyone in line, the Sherpa of the band, if you will, you don't want to get into your bag of tricks with music theory. I'm looking at this guy. I need him to play G major. What is the most surefire way for me to get him to play G major next? Call it the 5, if it is the 5 in this example, right? I'm not going to call it, even if we're in the key of A minor, where G would function as our flat 7 on that diagram. Man, I am calling G the 5. Like, unless the song was really going. But if I've got something where it's like A minor to F to G, on the bandstand, I call that a 6, 4, 5, not a 1, flat 6, flat 7. You might use that, but typically, if I'm going to use the flat 7, it's in the context to tell someone like, oh, we're in A major, but we're also doing a little bit of borrowing. Don't want to get too in the weeds here. And there's a G coming up here. But otherwise, the song is in A major, minus a little. Something like that, where that was 1, 3, 4, 5, 2, 5. You do not break away from standard major music theory just to accommodate the G here. Call that the flat 7 and be done with it. Whole point of music theory, modes, any of this stuff is about communication. It is not about dazzling people. So, with all of that said, I've got a few more quick thoughts on applying the modes into chordal music theory here before we get into our minor scale, which is something I tend to think you're a little bit more comfortable with. Real quickly, mnemonic device for remembering the modes. Now, when the modes were developed, it's my understanding, although all of this stuff's to a certain degree lost to time. So if you have a different version of events here, please comment below. Also, if you're liking this video, subscribe, like, ring the bell. There's going to be a Patreon soon. No, for real. Like, I'm just going to launch it in the new year here. It seems appropriate. Get some videos out, get some members, then launch the Patreon, build a market or something like that. I don't know. My dad was always telling me that crap. I should have listened better. But anyways, before we get into that, the modes. My understanding is that when they were named by Pythagoras, he did this in a fashion to assign them to various provinces around Greece. So there was an Aeolia, there was a Lydia, there was a Doria, there was an Ionia. And we see the vestiges of this in things like columns and other elements of Grecian culture. There are Ionic columns and Doric columns and things of that sort. So the whole idea of naming the modes after Greek provinces was to better help the student understand what we are talking about conceptually. So you don't even need to know the modes like that if you want to, though. An easy way of understanding this is I don't frickin' like modes any longer. So that's Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, frickin', Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. I don't frickin' like modes any longer. That's the easy way to remember them. But if you just want to call it the 1 mode, the 2 mode, the 3 mode, the 4 mode, the 5 mode, the 6 mode, the 7th mode, that works too. That's, again, going back to my conception of the purpose of music theory, better and more effective communication. And this, thinking about as the 1 mode, the 2 mode, the 3 mode, will help you understand, okay, what are the notational extensions off of each chord I am doing? So in 1, I'm going to use the Ionian mode, or the major scale, or the 1 mode. When we get to the 2 chord, now I'm going to use my Dorian mode that we talked about. Oh my God. I'm going to practice my Dorian mode. There we go. Chris can do it. You can too. And then our Phrygian mode, and so on and so forth here. So keep that in mind. The real purpose of knowing the modes is to really be thinking about how to better extend the scale. Now, if having all those modes committing to memory at this point is a little beyond you, easy trick on this. Thinking about this using minor pentatonics. So, what I can do is I can just think real simply in terms of my Ionian mode and then my Mixolydian mode, and be done with it in terms of the modes. And then for my minor chords, and then D minor here, I can actually put a minor pentatonic into each one of these chords to extend them out. Get a little Curtis Mayfield, Jimi Hendrix-y on it. So that's an easy way to apply this. Another quick trick before we get into our scales for the day is just peppering in a little bit of color into that minor pentatonic. So if I know I've got G minor here and A minor here, all right. Well, I can pepper in a little bit of color. Made like a quick color guide on this. If I pepper in a couple of greens here, like, cool, natural minor. If I pepper in a couple of blues, or I'll do here in A minor. Now I have the Phrygian mode. Easy way of getting this out. Until you have better command on Dorian, Phrygian, Aeolian just at the dispatch, try peppering in greens and blues. And then here's an example of what that might look like from another lesson. If I pepper in a few greens and blues into my minor pentatonic, I get a Dorian mode here. So that's one formulation of the Dorian mode. Another way, you can see right here, let me just illustrate the minor pentatonic in case it's not entirely obvious. But the minor pentatonic's basically here, and if you just drop that note, boom, there's your minor pentatonic, right? And you'll also see that now as we transition into the natural minor here, in kind of our default natural minor expression. So a great way of thinking about the natural minor, the Dorian, any of these 4 fret, 5 fret sort of formulations here. Why am I circling the whole thing? We don't need to do that. We can just circle this part. Any of these is to just think about them as greens and blues peppered in to a first position minor pentatonic box. That box is the skeleton, and we color in the skeleton, literally with our color patterns, the greens and the blues. That's a great way of thinking about the minor modes, and hopefully will help you get a little more comfortable adding some color into your playing as you're going through them. Now, what I want to get into today is looking at this in terms of the red, blue, green system. And this is the New Mexico special. For those of you who do not understand my state's culture, shame on all of you. Red and green chili is prime, and our New Mexico chili, some of the best in the world. There's the green chili, there's the red chili, which is best? Well, that will start a fight among people here in this state, so I'm not getting into that, but I do want to talk about this scale, thinking about it in terms of green and red, Christmas colors, as we talk about in this state. So, you're going to start off here, I'll do it on the 5th fret. I'm going to start off with 2 greens, and then I'm going to go into my reds, and then add a fret on for the B string. That'll take you up 2 octaves. Now, I've also included in this diagram, let me put back up here, just what the extension notes would look like on the E string. It's really where you want to spit out, right? Like, that's a lot of these diagrams. I have not included the E string in the scalar pattern because in a practical sense, you might want to go back kind of to bass position here for whatever you're doing next, or you might want to keep going upwards, right? Like either one of those are very viable harmonic paths that you might go. Which is better to practice? Yes, is the answer. All of them. Practice whatever you like. There is no right answer here. So that is our natural minor. Most of the time, we're probably going to be coloring that natural minor in periodically with a little bit of elements from the harmonic minor. It's so common, that's why it's called the harmonic minor, that it's very likely that you're going to not just be playing just a natural minor. You'll probably be targeting that leading tone. So just remember to raise that 7th degree, or use one of my tricks that I've taught you. All right, if you like the video, like the video. If you want more content, subscribe. If you've got comments, you want to tell me what you're getting out of this or different ways to conceive this theoretically. I try to keep this at one level, but if you want to help other people by expanding this out deeper and broader, that's what the comments section does below, and it also helps gain visibility and engagement. There will be a Patreon launched here soon, so when that comes out, hopefully I will see some of y'all over there. And if you're interested in getting a hold of playing the changes, please message me below for the time being, and I'm happy to provide you the Google Drive link. Thanks for watching, and until the next one, happy practicing.